now have more information on more cards being revealed in the Wilds Unknown, as well as Attack of a Vine. And it's time to dive into those cards, really see what they do, and maybe come up with some theories as we go along. Join me on this adventure as we dive into another installment of X Marks for Lore. Avast me hearties, and welcome on board. I am your host as normal, the man with the plan, Dom the Protocols, your captain of the Azurite crew, and today we will be going over the revealed cards from the most recent Lorecast. If you want a breakdown of any of the other information from the Lorecast, I did do a dedicated video to all the release news that you need to know about, and there'll be a little doobie on screen here so that you can check that out in a little bit. But you may not be interested in that, and you just want to dive into these cards, maybe come up with some deck theories along with me, see if these cards seem good, or maybe not so good. Let's have a look, shall we? Now, with the cards, we're going to be going over them in a bit of a random order, but we're going to be going through them one at a time, taking our time to have a look at their costs, their abilities, everything else, and think to ourselves of some quirky tech. And we're going to be kicking everything off with not just a new legendary, but also the Set Champ promo card for the Wilds Unknown. It's Woody, Jungle Guide, a 5-cost uninkable 1/5 for 2 in Amber, with shift free, let's get moving, and everyone gather round. Starting off with let's get moving. Whenever this character quests, draw a card. Then you may play a character with cost 2 or less for free. And then everyone gather round, your other toy characters get +1 willpower. So everyone gather round is quite cool because it is toy specific. Kind of goes alongside the Mickey Mouse as well, where the Amber Champion Mickey Mouse gives 2 willpower to all your other Amber characters. So if you have Woody and a Mickey out, all of your Amber toys now get +3 willpower, which is quite interesting. Then you get guaranteed card draw whenever Woody himself quests, and then play a character of 2 cost or less for free. But bear in mind that is from your hand. That is not the same as Rockstar Lilo that lets you play a 2-cost or less character for free from your discard. But they could go hand in hand, leading me to believe that Woody is more incentivizing towards toy aggro, or potentially an aggro-based strategy. So like I said earlier, you can combine this with the Mickey Amber Champion if you want to make your toys extra thick. You can combine it with the 2-drop Lilos, specifically the Lilo that gets replayed from discard, and the bundled up Lilo, to then obviously go into Rockstar Lilo, so that then you can bring things back from your discard as well as play cards from your hand. This also may work alongside the Lady free drop to be able to play more of your 2-cost or less characters from your hand, which is also interesting. The very interesting part here is how many other toys we are going to get in Amber, and whether we're going to get toys in all the other colors, or whether they are specifically going to be best in Amber and Emerald. Emerald being the other color that we know that does feature toys predominantly for Buzz Lightyear, which we'll get to later on in this video. So do I think Woody has a place? Yes, he is a 1/5, so he'll be easily able to be taken out with things like Under the Sea. But because he is a shift-free character, he should be relatively easy to get out. And he quests for 2, he gives you card draw, he lets you play characters. I think this Woody could be really, really great. After that Woody, we have the Jessie, lively cowgirl, that will also be featured in the Toys vs Heroes 2-player starter kit. So Jessie, lively cowgirl, is a 3-cost inkable 3/3 for 1 with part of the family and Yole. First off, part of the family. Whenever this counter quests, if you have 2 or more other toy characters in play, you may draw a card, which is fantastic in its own right. It does require that you have 2 or more other toy characters, which does kind of limit Jessie being specifically in a toy deck, but not the biggest problem in the world, and she has a similar draw effect like with the Snowboarder Stitch. And then Yoleihu, whenever you pay 2 ink or less to play a card, chosen opposing character gets -1 attack until the start of your next turn. Now, if you didn't see me talk about this in the previous video, where I went more in depth with everything that was revealed, allow me to give you a quick update. We had a Q&A session with the developers after our press conference, and I asked a question specifically about Jessie and Buzz on the Way that have new effects catered towards paying the cost rather than playing a card, because there is a distinct difference and I wanted to make sure that I got the rulings right. So I simply asked, when you use an effect that says whenever you pay, does that go alongside whenever you play, or does it trigger before? Does it trigger afterwards? What is the timing on this mechanic? And the timing is exactly the same. Confirmed by Levi of the Senior Games Design team, they have confirmed that when you pay for a card and when you play for a card, when it is worded that way, they are both in the same, meaning that they will both go into the bag at the exact same time and you can pull out whichever effect is more handy for you first. So with that in mind, does that change how you would potentially play Jessie? Yes, because you're paying 2 cost or less to play a card, which can be anything, mind you, a song, an action, a location, a character, and then choose an opposing character gets -1 attack until the start of their next turn. Meaning, this synergizes really well with the 2 cost Finnick in Emerald, meaning that you can play Finnick. When you play Finnick, his effect and Jessie's effect go into the bag at the same time. You pay 2 for Jessie to lower the attack of a chosen opposing character, and then you pay an extra 2 for Finnick's effect to bounce that character back to their player's hand. It's very ink cost heavy, but if you're able to pay Finnick for even less than 2, maybe even 3 if you play something like Akud Etamuti, or you maybe have a couple of Grandmother Willows out on the board, it could be a power play, and it does widen up your board afterwards, and that's just a basic idea off the top of my head. There's a multitude of things you can pull off here, making Jessie really interesting. Of course, we saw Shift Woody earlier, but we do have a base Woody to work off so far. There may be more Woodies out there, but this is the one we know of at the moment. A 4-cost Inkball 3/4 for 1 in Amber, Woody, leader of the toys. His effect is Let's Go Home. When you play this character, look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal a toy character card or a location card named Andy's Room and put it into your hand. Put the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. Now, this is the interesting part. During the release of all the information, there was no confirmation on Andy's Room and whether it's going to be in Amber, in Emerald, or a completely different colour as a whole. So that's all up in the air at the moment, and we're going to have to find out. But the fact that you can search for a toy or a specific location from your top 4 after playing this Woody makes him very viable. And on top of that, he is a 3/4, meaning that he does get over any potential threats of Under the Sea. I think with a decent stat block and a great searchability option, this Woody is very similar to the 4-cost Judy Hopps that is specific to detectives. So bearing that in mind, I think this Woody's going to be fantastic for toy-specific decks. Now we move on to a card I'm very interested in. Louisa Madrigal, the 5-cost Inkable 6/4 for 1 Confident Climber in Amethyst. She is a shift-free with I Can Take It, and that effect's really cool. You pay 1 ink, move up to 1 damage from chosen character of yours to this character. Then, if this character has 3 or more damage, move all the damage from this character to chosen opposing character. So this is really interesting, but you do need to be very careful with this Louisa Madrigal, because in order to move the 3 from Louisa, you need to make sure that when she takes 1 damage from one of your characters and puts it onto herself, this does not take Louisa to 4, because if it takes Louisa to 4, you've basically banished her. Not good. So you're going to have to micromanage the amount of damage that is on Louisa. But if your opponent's not necessarily focusing on the damage, maybe you're even playing a Cheshire Cat on your side of the board. Just remember, with Cheshire Cat, if Louisa is at 2 damage already, or maybe even 3 damage already, and you're a little bit worried about moving excess damage onto her, you can remove 2 damage off of her by boosting up Cheshire Cat first, and then pay 2 for Louisa Madrigal, taking her up to 3, and then move 3 damage from her onto your opponent's character on their side of the board, potentially wiping out 2 things in a single turn. Again, it's kinda ink heavy, but maybe there's something to be said about a Blurple deck that likes moving damage. And if it's in Blurple, maybe this is Pabby's time to shine. I swear I've been trying to build Pabby ever since he got revealed, and I still think there's a place for him. I don't know how, I don't know where. I will try again, and I swear I'm gonna make Pabby work!
Please, 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 please!
Needless to say, Louisa's interesting. She is a 6/4 for 5, so she's very well statted, and she's a shift 3, so we're probably going to see another Louisa in this set in order to shift on to make her more viable. Is she the best? I don't think so. Out of the legendaries I've seen so far, she's up there as one of my most interesting cards of the set, but maybe not necessarily the best for everybody. But yet again, I could be completely wrong. Be interesting to find out. Next up, she's from Brave and is officially in Lorcana. It's Merida, the Gifted Archer. 5-cost Inkball 3/6 for 2, a shift 3 with Fierce Protection. While this counter is exerted, whenever an opposing character challenges, you may deal 1 damage to the challenging character. This is an effect I have been really interested in for the longest time. An effect that punishes your opponent for challenging into you in the first place. So you've got to remember, this is upon challenge declaration. So when your opponent declares a challenge, they're going to be dealt 1 damage before the challenge completes and damage gets expended towards the characters involved. Which means this could completely destroy someone's game plan very early on. But how would you take advantage of something like this? Easy. Emerald and Steel. In Emerald, you make a deck based around the Reckless keyword. And Reckless has been up there as maybe not the best keyword, but there have been some cards that can take advantage of it, such as Liquidator and Aladdin in Ruby, 2 of my favorite cards in Ruby actually. So I guess you could also put Merida in a Ruby Emerald deck with Reckless as well, if you so wish. The reason why we do it in Steel is because Steel also has access to Resist. So if you're able to, you can potentially punish your opponent for recklessly challenging into your characters, stopping aggro games, but then you take little to no damage because of Resist, shutting them down entirely, punishing their board, potentially wiping their board, and causing some big problems. The thing you need to remember, however, this could bite you in the bum, and I'm specifically looking at the Louisa Madrigal that we saw earlier, and characters like Cheshire Cat that love moving damage, and also Ruby Amethyst decks that specifically love moving individual points or big points of damage from their characters onto your characters will actually love this Merida. So be sure that if you have this Merida out and your opponent is challenging, that they are able to be annihilated during your next turn and can't benefit from it with the use of something like Cheshire Cat, or else this could be a detriment. The next card we're going to be diving into, and we're diving deep into the jungle with my number 1 card that I'm going to be building my decks off of as of the release of Wilds Unknown. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Buzz Lightyear Jungle Ranger. He is a 7-cost uninkable 7/5 for 2, shift 5 with Take Charge and Advanced Training. Take Charge is when you play this character, you may return an action card with cost 7 or less from your discard to your hand. That is a very, very large pool of actions, which means that Buzz Lightyear by himself, when he's played, could immediately dive into a bunch of different decks out there. I mean, just thinking of a few off the top of my head. Pirate's Life from Ruby, Dragonfire from Ruby, You're Welcome from Emerald, Stop Chaos in Its Tracks from Emerald. If you really want to be that guy, you can even bring back Ink Geyser. I mean, just saying. And then, of course, you got a bunch of Steel actions as well, like Hurled as Thunderbolt, Fire the Cannons, the brand new Free Arrow action as well that's also going to be in this, which we'll see later on. I think this Buzz Lightyear in Steel predominantly is going to be excellent, but not even uniquely to Steel. This Buzz Lightyear opens up opportunities in Amethyst, in Amber, in a bunch of different cards, and that's only his Take Charge effect. because his advanced draining effect is whenever you play an action, doesn't even matter what the action is, doesn't even matter if you played it for free or at any cost, doesn't even matter if it's a song or anything, chosen character gets +1 lore this turn. Mad. So he also benefits you in an aggro aspect, which makes this buzz beautiful. I want to build around this buzz. I'm hyped for this buzz, and the other thing that I'm buzzed about is the fact that the buzz artwork also features the little green men, which I hope also have cards, because if they don't, I will be very upset. How dare you tease me this way? It is key to note that Buzz Lightyear is also one of the 2 iconics in the set. We'll get to the other one later on. The next card is another card I'm really happy exists, because I'm a huge fan of Toy Story and a huge fan of Pizza Planet. A new location in Emerald, 2-cost inkable, 1 lore at the start of your turn, 7 willpower, 2 ink to travel to, with you are clear to enter and heavily guarded. So first things first, your toy characters can move here for free, which makes it crazy good for the likes of Buzz Lightyear and the likes of Woody, Jessie, and a couple of other toys we'll see later. But we also have heavily guarded. Whenever a character is challenged while here, each opponent loses 1 lore, which is good. The problem with this is that this does mean that players can just attack the location rather than the character, and they probably will 9/10 of the time. So what does this mean? It does mean the Pizza Planet, although I love it, does come with a bit of a caveat if you're not running toys, because if you're not running toys, it's going to be very expensive to move characters to it. And on top of that, if your opponent is going to be able to attack the location and not your characters, they'll just attack the location. But what helps in this extent? The Steal Action Winter Spell, because remember, that action card makes it so that a chosen location cannot be challenged this turn, which can be a big benefit. You can also play cards like the Games Afoot to give your location resist 2, which then also means that it may be more viable for your opponent to attack the character, because they could potentially banish the character rather than attack the location. There are ways to deter them, but it is going to require specific toolkits. But yet again, you know what the best toolkit is at the moment? Emerald and Steel. And this could be hinting at some other Emerald, Steel, or other color cards that may stop your opponents from being able to challenge locations. So we'll have to keep our eyes out. Pizza Planet is not the only new location coming into Wilds Unknown. We also have Remote Inklands, the Desert Ruins. In Ruby, a 2-cost inkable, 1 lore at the start of your turn, 6 willpower, 2 to travel to location, with Eroding Winds and Successful Expedition. First things first, Eroding Winds. At the start of your turn, put the top card of your deck into your discard, and then characters get +2 attack while here. I'm a bit confused with this location, and allow me to explain what I mean. The location could be interesting, and I mean giving your characters +2 attack while they're here is kind of huge, but having high attack characters is just good in general. It helps with getting over resist, it helps with getting over really big willpower characters. There are also other characters that really like having high attack stats, and you can also benefit from that later on. I'm even looking at characters like the Boost Wreck-It Ralph, because without boosting the Ralph, you could pay 2 to move Ralph into this location, and now that Ralph immediately becomes a 5/4, meaning that if he's banished, he will banish all characters with 5 attack on the board also. So this could help with a board wipe situation involving Ralph, but you don't want your other characters or a very specific character to be banished alongside him. The problem I'm really having is Eroding Winds, because you are technically milling yourself at the start of each and every one of your turns. The good out of this is that you're not discarding cards, you're just simply taking a card from the top of your deck and putting it straight into your discard. And in Ruby, it's actually not a bad thing, because you do have access still to Maui Half Shark. So if you put a desirable action card like Pirate's Life, for example, directly into your discard, Maui Half Shark would be able to attack, get that action back into your hand, and then you can play it straight away, gaining 1 lore and doing whatever it does, or you can at least hold on to it for a little bit later. It can also benefit some other strategies in the game as well. I'm specifically thinking of Amethyst with the Anna Soothing Sister, because now this means at the start of your turn you fuel your discard, you could potentially discard one of your high lore gaining characters, but if you have Soothing Sister out in play, she can quest, target that character, gain lore based off of their lore, and then put that character back at the bottom of your deck, meaning that technically, did you even lose anything? And you can even combine it with Amber, because in Amber, you have ways to get characters back from your discard. I'm thinking of Circle of Life, I'm thinking of Chippendale. There are ways to benefit off of this location. So as much as I said I was confused by it, maybe I'm not. Maybe I slept on it. Maybe it could be a good sleeper location. We'll have to wait and find out. But you have to build with this location in mind, so be careful. We do also have the return of the Rescue Rangers in this deck, and Gadget is here to help us out. She is a 4-cost uninkable 1/5 for 1 in Sapphire, Gadget Hack Wrench, Resourceful Mechanic with Time to Tinker and Well Supplied. Time to Tinker is when you play this character, you may play an item with cost 3 or less, which opens up quite a lot of different actions. Combining it in Steel, for example, gives you a plethora of different items to take advantage of, including one of my favorites, which I think is being slept on a little bit, Ingenious Device, which can be very devastating for certain decks. But it's not necessarily exclusive for Steel. Again, there are a lot of options in all the other colors out there, and not even just for Core Constructed. There can also be options within the Wilds Unknown itself, as well as Infinity formats, so you can see where things go. Especially in Infinity now that Flaversham's been banned. Rest in peace, Flaversham. The other effect, Well Supplied, is your characters with support get +1 lore. Now the trick with this is that you could technically combine Gadget Hack Wrench with Tiny Tim's Crutch, because Tiny Tim's Crutch has the effect of giving a chosen character support. Now, any character that you have on the board that doesn't necessarily have support can gain support and immediately gain an extra +1 lore with Gadget Hack Wrench, making for a very interesting combination. And then because you're playing with a bunch of support characters, maybe this is another excuse to whip out your Alice Growing Girls in order to make a quirky Ruby Sapphire Growing Girl deck and have some crazy support tech going on, get Alice to 10 and make her quest big. Who knows? Just a random strategy off the top of my head. This is where we get to the good stuff. This is where we get to my favorite boys. Mr. Incredible, a Steel character taking out the trash. I am in love with this character, and I'm going to explain why, but let's dive into him first. He is a 4-cost inkable 4/4 for 1 with Kapow! When you play this character, you may deal 2 damage to chosen opposing robot or villain character. Now, his stat block is straightforward, a 4-cost 4/4. Very good, very simple. But his effect, you may be thinking, well, that's a bit restrictive. You need to be against either robots or villains. But you need to bear in mind a couple of things. Number 1, there are some key villain cards that are predominantly used in a lot of meta-themed decks. I'm thinking about Demona, I'm thinking about Hades, both in Amethyst and Sapphire, and that's just naming 3 core meta cards off the top of my head. You've also got cards like Yzma in Amethyst, you've got cards like the Queen that could make a comeback in Wilds Unknown, you never know, and you also have the brand new Traveler Maleficent, which we're also going to be looking at later on in this video. So there are plenty of villain characters out there, potentially also Syndrome, which please, I hope Syndrome is in this set. I'm Syndrome! But the reason why I'm happy with Mr. Incredible is because he's 4-cost. What can you play on 3-cost that will then make Mr. Incredible even more incredible? Thunderquack! All of a sudden, Mr. Incredible in Darkwing and making a super or hero themed deck is much more viable. Turn 3, you play out Thunderquack, and Thunderquack makes it so that all opposing characters now have the villain classification. meaning that on turn 4, you can play Mr. Incredible and deal 2 damage to anyone you want, which can be devastating against aggro decks, which can be devastated against decks that don't want a lot of damage held onto their characters anyway, and heck, you could deal 2 damage to something that's already exerted, and then you can bop it out of the way with something else that you already have on board. This Mr. Incredible has incredible combo potential with Darkwing, which makes me very happy as a Darkwing player. Let's freaking go.
Showtime.
The next card we're going to be talking about is the second iconic for the set. It is Merida, Formidable Archer. 5-cost uninkable 3/5 for 2 in steel with full quiver and steady aim. First off, full quiver. When you play this character, you may return an action card named 3 Arrows from your discard to your hand. We will check on 3 arrows a little bit later on. But we also have steady aim. Whenever one of your actions deals damage to an opposing character, deal 2 damage to that character. Now you need to bear in mind a key thing with the steady aim effect. It is specifically deals damage. So if you're looking at anything like Mosquito Bite that puts damage, it will not work. And if you're looking at anything that moves damage, it won't work either. So you need to make sure it's specifically said deals damage. But with that in mind, we already have some fantastic options in steel itself. 3 arrows will now deal, instead of 2 damage to one and 1 damage to a second, it will now deal 4 damage to one and 3 damage to a second, which is pretty crazy. But on top of that, something as simple as fire the cannons now deals 4 damage. Something as simple as smash now deals 5 damage. Something as simple as he hurled his thunderbolt deals 6 damage as a song. You just have to bear in mind that it is an action, and as long as it is an action that deals damage, you add 2 on top to deal that damage. It is mad. But you also got to bear in mind this. You deal damage with that action first, and then you deal 2 damage separately to that. So it's not as if it is increasing the damage by 2, it is dealing an additional 2. So taking Smash for example, you'll deal 3 damage to a character first, then deal 2 on top of the 3, not 5 total. So you deal 3, then 2, which could be a factor when you have to calculate resist, or when you're calculating something like, oh, I don't know, Lilo bundled up. Because suddenly, Lilo has to be dealt damage once before she can be dealt damage again. And that specifically means that we deal 3 damage to Lilo first, using her bundled up effect, and then an additional 2 damage, which would mean the 2 damage would banish Lilo. Awesome! But this also works against the Rapunzel legendary that puts a bubble onto characters, because now you can fire the cannons, dealing 2 damage to a character first, popping the bubble, and then Merida's steady aim effect will trigger, dealing another 2 damage to that character, meaning that it will go past the bubble because it no longer exists, dealing 2 damage, potentially wiping them off the board. This Merida will be very highly sought after. I am assuming that she is going to be a very pricey card when the set comes out, and a lot of people will be going crazy for her, me included. So keep an eye out, this could be the most sought after legendary in the entire set. And looky, next card, 3 Arrows. So let's dive into what 3 Arrows actually does. It is a 3-cost inkable action card in steel with deals 2 damage to chosen character, then you may deal 1 damage to another chosen character. Now the great thing about this is that the second part of the effect is a you may, so you don't need to deal 1 damage to another chosen character if you don't want to, and if you're not going to benefit from it. So if you're worried about something like a Cheshire Cat, you're going to be absolutely fine. But the benefit from this is going to be with Merida, because like I said, now you deal 2 damage to a chosen character, then you may deal 1 damage to another chosen character. That now means you deal 2 damage to a chosen character, which is increased by another 2 damage to that chosen character because of Merida, and that 1 damage is also now another 2 damage to a different chosen character. So with Merida out, this is now 4 damage to one, 3 damage to another. which is crazy and has the potential to wipe a board, if not control a board, meaning that Merida may be your go-to choice if you really don't like dogs. The caveat to this combo is simple. It is a free cost action, meaning that you cannot sing it. But does that mean we're going to have ways to reduce the cost of actions in Wilds Unknown? I hope so, and I hope that there is going to be a tech out there to make Merida and guys like Buzz a little bit more valuable. Because at the moment, the only card I have off the top of my head that can decrease the cost of action cards is my boy Gwenge from my pirate deck, which is awesome because it means Gwenge could see some day one play in Emerald and Steel with Merida. But there should be some other tech in Wilds Unknown, we just don't know yet, but it's key to keep in mind, and I don't think that means 3 arrows is a dead draw. It's also key to know that 3 arrows is also one of the epic cards that you can get from Wilds Unknown. Looking pretty epic there. So those are all the main cards from the Wilds Unknown that we know about, but we do also have information on the promo cards that are going to be available in the pre-release kits, which also means these cards are going to be available in the set themselves. So let's dive into these ones. Starting off with Aerial Curious Traveler, a 4-cost inkable 3/3 for 2 in Amber and Familiar Ground. Whenever this character quests, if you played another character this turn, chosen opposing character can't challenge and must quest if able during their next turn. Now this is the same effect as the uninkable Boost Gaston and the uninkable Cobra Bubbles. So if you do want to do some quirky you can't challenge me deck, I guess you can do it with this Aerial, but this Aerial is beneficial. She is a 3/3 for 2, she's a princess, so she automatically works in Amber Princess decks, and on top of that, being able to stop your opponent from being able to challenge will also mean that cards like Pizza Planet are going to be perfectly fine, and can also synergize with the legendary Pocahontas from Winterspell. So there is a quirky synergy here. Princess Shutdown could be a thing, and that in itself is very scary. So keep an eye out, because Princess Shutdown could be a thing. I'm also thinking combining it in Steel, so then you can play the 4-cost uninkable Gantu, which makes it so that your opponent cannot sing songs on the turn he's played, and then he makes actions and items 2 cost more in future, which is very, very intimidating, but I really like it. The next Traveller is Maleficent, Imperious Traveller in Amethyst, a 5-cost inkable 3/5 for 2 with Heed My Words. Whenever this character quests, if you played another character this turn, you may exert chosen opposing character. I think this effect is great. Being able to exert a chosen opposing character is very powerful. Having this effect on another card outside of a 5-cost Elsa is also a fantastic thing, because this means on turn 5 you could play out the Elsa, which I think 9 times out of 10 is going to be your better option, because she does come out on the board, exert a character, and can rush into that character at the same time, and then you can benefit from things like Cheshire Cat afterwards if you want to move damage, etc. But that doesn't necessarily mean this Maleficent is bad. She quests for 2. She has that effect where if you play another character, you can just immediately exert an opposing character. I'm thinking of something quirky with the Horned King, and you know I love me some Horned King tech, so that could be awesome as well. You can also combine her with some of the moving damage decks. I'm looking at you, Ruby and Amethyst, to truly take advantage of things like that. It also gives you some more exertion tech if you're not able to get into your 6-cost Timona, or quite frankly, if you don't have all the excess funds known to mankind to be able to afford 4 copies of Demona, so this could be a viable pick for you. There's some quirky things you can do with this Maleficent, and I personally like her a lot. Then we have possibly the craziest one of them all. I must admit, I'm very interested in building a deck around. It is the 6-cost inkable 4/4 for 4 Cruella de Vil Judgmental Traveler with You're Out of Fashion. Whenever this character quests, if you played another character this turn, you may banish chosen damaged character. Now the trick is, Her effect does rely on damaged characters, so putting her in steel, being able to deal damage first, then questing with Cruella if you can play a character in addition with being able to play an action that can deal damage or something along those lines could work out. I'm also thinking within her own color scheme, you can maybe play her with Dinky, the turn 2 character, where you pay 2, play out Dinky, make your opponent choose one of their characters to deal 1 damage to them. Then you can quest with this Cruella, because you did play a character this turn, you gain 4, and then you immediately banish that character. It also works really well with Malicious, Mean, and Scary. If you don't see the Prince Philip, or quite frankly, you don't need the board wipe, you just need to micromanage an individual character, this Cruella de Vil could see play. There's a very quirky Amethyst and Emerald damaging deck that I'm thinking of with this. I'm going to build it and find out, but what ideas do you have for this Cruella? Let me know down below. We also have the Queen of Hearts coming back, with Queen of Hearts Impatient Traveler, the 4-cost Inkable 4/2 for 2 in Ruby with Royal Command. Whenever this character quests, if you played another character this turn, chosen character gains Rush this turn. Rush isn't bad. There's some synergies you can do with Rush. Maybe combine this in Amethyst so that then you can do some exertion tech, immediately play out a character that you want to bop something, quest with the Queen of Hearts, gain 2, give it Rush, bop into something. I'm also thinking of the Horned King, so then if you banish it, it goes back into your hand. It would go really, really well in this quirky combo deck that I thought of, involving Duckworth, Horned King, and Scrooge's Counting House, for example. So there's a really quirky synergy that you can do there. I think this Queen of Hearts may not necessarily be the best traveler out of the travelers we've seen, but she's not necessarily the worst. So we'll see how this works out, but there's some quirky synergies you can definitely do with this card. We also have the 4-cost Inkable Sapphire Traveler, or should I say Resourceful Traveler, Cinderella. I'm loving the Cinderella, has kind of got that Bo Peep vibe of her, and this is a Dreamborn version of her dress from the movie. The artwork is possibly one of my favorites. I do love it. Also, more mice. Are we going to see Jacques come back? Anyway, 4-cost Inkable, 1/4 for 2 in Sapphire with this and that. Whenever this character quests, if you play another character this turn, you may put the top card of your deck into your inkwell, face down, and exerted. It's Cinderella with more ramp. It's a Cinderella that can synergize with the other Cinderella, which makes it so that at the end of your turn, you can then take a card from your hand, put it into your inkwell, and draw a card. This does mean if you have 4 ink in play, you can do something interesting with just Cinderella cards. You can play this Cinderella on turn 4, wait for your next turn, play the uninkable Cinderella. By the end of that turn, you can quest with this Cinderella to be able to gain 2, put the top of your deck into your inkwell face down exerted, and then the other Cinderella you played out will let you take a card from your hand, put that into your inkwell, and then draw a card from your deck. And then you have princesses out. This could go really nicely in Amber with Queen Sensicore if you want to go core princesses, because it's also ramp. You can possibly see this in some other decks out there. This Cinderella could be great. If not in core constructed, maybe in limited formats if you're going to do a draft or you're going to do a sealed with your pre-release kits. I think this Cinderella could actually be really funky. Now personally, this may be one of my favorite traveler cards from the set. This is Pocahontas Steadfast Traveler. 4-cost Inkable 4/5 for 1 in Steel with Wandering Spirit. Whenever this character quests, if you played another character this turn, return a location card from your discard to your hand. It is location synergy. This helps in any deck that wants locations to be out. I'm looking at you, Ruby and Steel locations, with things like Sleepy Hollow, with things like Ice Artisan Elsa to be able to quest for big if you have a location out. I'm even thinking of things like Scrooge's Counting House, where you can boost up and make it a really big scary location. You can also combine it in its own color scheme with Zootopia, the 1-drop location to be able to draw and discard a card. Seven Dwarves Mine, which is still a fantastic location. Castle Wyvern, that'll be able to give your characters Challenger 1 and Resist 1 as long as they're there. And one of my favorite location cards, Illuminary Tunnels, which is a free cost location, but does make it so that as long as it's out and you have a character there, your other locations cost 1 less, and Illuminary Tunnels will gain 1 lore for every other location you have out in play, similar to the John Silver, which then means this is a John Silver location deck, hands down. So many things can be done with this Pocahontas, and she's also another Pocahontas that you can use to shift onto with the Amber Legendary Pocahontas to stop your opponents from being able to challenge until the start of your next turn, meaning that if you have everything in play with Illuminary Tunnels, suddenly your opponent can't challenge at the start of their turn, so they have to rely on alternate ways to board wipe, and if they can't board wipe, the start of your turn happens, you can benefit from Illuminary Tunnels, benefit from your other locations, and then quest big with all your other characters, and win the game out of nowhere. She could be crazy. Meaning there is a deck build coming, I assure you. But we don't just have the Traveler promos. Oh no, ladies and gentlemen, we also have some other promos that you'll be able to get from your weekly leagues. Starting off with Lenny, the toy binoculars. I love Lenny, and I love this artwork. It's so simple and so beautiful. He is a free cost Inkable Emerald character, 0-2 for 1 lore, and take a good look, and coming up fast. First, take a good look. When you play this character, chosen opponent reveals their hand and discards an action card of your choice. So it's not like Mowgli where your opponent has control. You have full control to discard an action card of your choice. So you can target key things like the Visions of the Future, sail the Azurite Sea, you can get rid of their Under the Seas, their Raging Storms, their Dragonfires, their Pirates' Lives. This Lenny could be a beautiful control piece, and he counts as a toy, so you can benefit from things like the Amber Woody, as well as some other quirky tech. But then we also have the Coming Up Fast effect, where once during your turn, whenever you play an action, you may ready this character, meaning that you can play Lenny, you can then quest with Lenny on one of your later turns, and after you've quested with Lenny or even sung with Lenny, because he is a free cost character, there's quite a few nice songs you can sing with him. When you just play an action, it doesn't have to be an action that isn't a song, it's just an action. You immediately ready the Lenny. It's only once per turn, but remember, that means, and because there's no restriction after you ready Lenny, you can sing with Lenny, and because it's an action, you can then ready Lenny to then sing another action with Lenny, which is kinda nuts. So keep an eye out for this Lenny, and be careful if your opponent has a bit of a wide board and is running Lenny in Steel and has a couple of copies of Strength for a Raging Fire in their hand. Just giving you an example. We do also have another promo, Zipper, also from Chippendale's Rescue Rangers, so that makes me happy. It's a 1-cost Inkable 0-4 for 1 in Sapphire. He's vanilla. However, we do have some quotation text here that does hint at Monterey Jack, so we could see the other Rescue Rangers coming back in this set. I mean, we have Gadget, we have Zip. Could we see Monterey as well as Chippendale? Maybe even some more Don Carnage? We're gonna have to wait and see. And now we have a really beautiful card, and I love the artwork here, done by Julia Reaver. I hope I've pronounced your name right. It is Willow the Wisp, Forest Spirit. A 1-cost Inkable 0-3 for 1 in Amethyst with Come On Out. When this character is banished in a challenge, you may return this character to your hand. It is the same effect as the Horned King, it is the same effect as the 2-cost Hey Hey, but you don't have to discard a card afterwards if it is the Horned King, and acts more like the Hey Hey, where it just simply comes back into your hand. So, because it is resulting in a challenge, you can benefit by playing out this Will-O-the-Wisp and just questing every single turn. You need to bear in mind, it is via challenge. So, Dragonfire, Sad Face, Raging Storm, sad face. For Big Ralph or any other board wipes, sad face. But if it's a challenge, happy face. Not a bad happy face to have. Now this is possibly one of my favourite promos coming into Wilds Unknown. We have Dash Par, Lava Runner, the 4-cost uninkable 3-2 for 2 in Amethyst with Rush and Record Time. This character can quest the turn he's played. Ladies and gentlemen, we have our new GOAT for Amethyst. And by that, I mean Merlin GOAT. You are on the verge of winning the game, and instead of your opponent running Amethyst and Steel and playing out Cobra, they play Dash Par simply because you can play Dash, quest for 2, and win the game. I can see this Dash being sought after potentially in some very quirky Amethyst decks. Maybe Amethyst and Steel would benefit from him. I could see him being a benefit in basically any Amethyst aggro list. I could see him being a benefit in any deck that just needs a rush character to bop something out of the way. I can even see him being a benefit in a deck with something like the Horned King, because then you can play him out. He's a 3-2 with rush, he bops into something, returns back to your hand. You can then play him later on when you just need to quest for 2 and win the game. This Dash is very, very scary. I love him. I love he's a promo. He's a buy a box promo, which debatably makes him one of the best, if not the single best buy a box promo I think we've ever had. This Dash is cracked. And if you're playing Pack Rush, you're gonna win. And if you don't win with Dash, something's happened. But I just love him to bits. Oh my lord, that effect is crazy. But Dash isn't the only incredible that is also going to be a promo card. We also have Violet Par, Learning New Powers, a 3-cost inkable 4-2 for 1 in Amethyst with Evasive and Deflect. When you play this character, you may move 1 damage from chosen character to chosen opposing character. Now this is the exact same effect as the 3-cost Bell from the earlier sets, but does the exact same things. However, there is a big difference. That Bell was a 3-cost 3-3 for 1 and did not have Evasive. This Violet is a 3-cost inkable 4-2 for 1 with Evasive and the same effect. So debatably, this Violet Par is much better than that Bell. And because she counts as a super and she counts as a hero, potentially has more tech out there. I'm looking at this crazy Amethyst and Steel Incredibles list. If you want to go strict with supers and heroes, I think she's going to be a benefit in some other decks out there as well. And in limited formats, could be a limited sleeper hit alongside Dash. So don't sleep on Violet. I think she could be quite an interesting card out there with some very intricate synergies. Do you want to move 1 damage most of the time? Maybe not. But that 1 damage could be all you need to banish a character. And if it removes damage off of your side of the board, and I don't know, you're maybe playing her with Pabby, you're gonna get 2 lore. I'm telling you, it's a Pabby deck waiting to happen. I'm not crazy. Now, if all you were interested in were the cards from Wilds Unknown, you can stop the video here. But if you wanted to carry on, we weren't just privy to information concerning the cards in Wilds Unknown. We did have 3 reveals for the next set, Attack of the Vine, giving us an idea of cards we're going to be able to play post-rotation. And we have 3 cards in general. They are Mike, Sully, and Boo. So to round up this video, let's have a look at these 3 cards and immediately start deck theory crafting for Attack of the Vine, shall we? Let's start off with Mike Wazowski. He is a 1-cost inkable 2-1 for 1 in Amber. He is Mike Wazowski, well-rounded entertainer with Make 'em Laugh. When you play this character, you may pay 2 to give chosen character +1 lore this turn. This Mike Wazowski is going to be great for aggro decks post-rotation. I think he's going to be a go-to player in that deck as soon as rotation hits. Maybe in longevity. If not in longevity, he's at least going to see early play being a common card, so he's going to be very easy to get your hands on. And on top of that, could be a really good card if there's going to be a shift Mike Wazowski in the set. The other key thing to bear in mind with Mike as well is that he also has a brand new classification, being Monster. So we're possibly going to see some monster synergies as well in Attack of the Vine. So bear that in mind. Needless to say, I'm loving the artwork, and it's key to note as well that in these artworks, the Vine is there in all the art. Notice that in the window. Let's see where the others are. The next character is the other monster and the big fluffy boy. It is Sully, the new boss. 5 cost uninkable 4/4 for 1 in Amber with Bodyguard and Rehire. The Rehire effect is when you play this character, you may return a character card from your discard to your hand. Very valuable. I know it's an on-play effect, but guess what this synergizes with? You remember the location card we were talking about earlier, where you have to take a card from the top of your deck into your discard at the start of every one of your turns? Suddenly, that fuels Sully, because when you play Sully, you can play him as a bodyguard, so he turns into a 4/4 bodyguard, return a character card from your discard to your hand. You could play it the same turn if you have enough ink, but if you don't, it's in your hand, it's ready to go. It could be a threat for your opponent if they're thinking about board wipes or if they're thinking about doing something quirky. And because Sully is a 4/4, that means he's going to be hard to get rid of with cards like Under the Sea. He may be a target for things like Dragonfire, and if your opponent has a Merida out, may make mincemeat out of Sully, but then they're going to be focusing on Sully and none of your other boys, making this bodyguard really intriguing. The tough part is that he is 5 cost and uninkable, but if you can micromanage your uninkable cards, he might just be perfectly fine. Loving the artwork, by the way, with Boo hiding behind Sully, and this being based in the war room where all the doors are, and the vines taking over the doors. So are we potentially going to be seeing something in this set with locations, Monsters Inc. and the vine tampering with these locations? Maybe in an Illumineers quest? But the final card of this video is one I'm really happy with. Boo Energetic Child. She is a 3 cost uninkable 0/1 in Ruby with Rush and Kid-tastrophe. Whenever this character challenges another character with 3 attack or less, banish that character. No damage is dealt in that challenge. So this is on challenge declaration. And because it bypasses no damage being dealt, that means cards like Lilo Bundled Up that needs to be damaged twice in order to be rid of no longer comes into question. She's immediately banished because it's 3 attack or less. This just means the Boo can immediately destroy a bunch of aggro tech out there, which could be very devastating. And you may be thinking what I'm thinking if you know what theme I'm going with my deck building quirkiness here. It's in Ruby. It can combine well with Amethyst to exert characters, but it can also work with the Horned King, so whenever you attack with Boo, you banish something without even dealing damage. Maybe Boo sadly gets wiped out of the way on your opponent's turn, but if she's wiped in a challenge, you can then return her to your hand, discard a different card, and Boo is still a threat in your hand, ready to be used again on your turn, and there will be other ways of bouncing Boo back into your hand if you so wish, or even Boo in Amber being able to play her out with Sully, because she synergizes with Sully. I think this Boo is hilarious. She could potentially see a bit of a splash play in certain decks out there. It's very early to say, and of course this is way ahead of time because of Attack of the Vine. I'm just loving Boo anyway, and the fact that she immediately scares characters out of the way. Love it a bit. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is every card we know of so far, and a bit of a deeper dive into each and every one. Sorry if this is a bit of a longer video, but I did want to go in depth with every single card here and give you my thoughts and ideas with each and every one. So hopefully that gives you some insight. But if it does give you some insight, fill me in on your insight down in the comments down below with any deck theory crafting ideas that you may have. Be sure to share this with your friends so they can get updated on these cards as well, and be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any other explosive action involving these cards and any other decks I come out with in the future. If you're interested, be sure to check on my original video talking about the reveals involving Wilds Unknown, Attack of the Vine, and the next set, Hyperia City, which is going to be my next major video, as I have some ideas about what Hyperia City could be bringing to the table. Hope you enjoy these cards, and I hope you enjoy filling me in or thinking of your own deck theory crafting. And I'll be seeing you guys next time. So many ideas! And I can't wait. My deck build brain's going crazy right now.